Well, now we can discuss some of our more non-lethal attackers. Now, I know that's somewhat a weird statement considering the individual's attempts, but the last few would-be assassins we will be covering did not succeed at their attempts, or in some cases, not even taking a shot. And speaking of not taking a shot, that takes us to the first would-be assassin. The assassin of President Andrew Jackson. Now, Andrew Jackson, it's impressive that only a single person took a shot at him. Jackson was born in between the Carolinas in 1767, having grown up into adulthood during the American Revolution. He and his siblings would actually aid the revolutionary cause, going so far to be captured and even immortalized in a print called The Brave Boy, for him refusing to polish a boot for the British officer. This resulted in the officer slashing him with his saber, leaving a permanent scar on his left hand and head. But Jackson's true notoriety didn't come until the War of 1812, where he was serving as a U.S. general in command of defending the port city of New Orleans. Now, due to the way New Orleans and the terrain around the city is, it made it very difficult for the British forces to land directly in the city. So instead of attempting an amphibious landing of the city, the British landed in the marshlands to the east of the city, more towards Florida. Jackson had gotten every regular, militiaman, freedmen, smuggler, Native Americans, and even pirates, and built a giant entrenchment facing the British approach. He was victorious, but the reality was, a truce had actually been negotiated already by England and the United States, the Treaty of Ghent. So both sides were fighting a conflict that both were technically not supposed to be. He would then serve through the First Seminole War, and then he would continue his political career as was common with generals. Back in this period, officers and generals were the celebrities of the United States. So he ran for president in 1824. He then lost to President John Adams' son, John Quincy Adams, but would then win the presidency in 1928, where he started a new cadet branch of the Democratic Republican Party. With the assistance of his second vice president, Martin Van Buren, they founded the Democratic Party. This is the modern Democratic Party that still exists today in the United States of America. But Jackson's term was plagued with controversy. He was the first president who dismantled the Bank of the United States. His cabinet was constantly having incidents and scandals. He was a stubborn man who refused to listen to others. In fact, this is where the Democratic Party got their mascot, which, if you're familiar with the mascots of the party, is a donkey. And the most controversial was his Indian Removal Act, which led to the removal of thousands of Native Americans from their lands in the southern states to the west, resulting in the death of over 11,900 natives on the famous Trail of Tears. So it's fair to say that Jackson, though popular from his military career, was an extremely controversial president, to say the least. But now we come to Richard Lawrence. Lawrence was an English immigrant who had emigrated to the United States when he was 12 and then became a house painter in adulthood. Now, much like our other assassins, it's fair to say not everything was there with Lawrence. He was convinced that he had estates in England and that he was actually the English king, Richard III, a person who had died in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth. Now, there's a theory, which I believe is a fair one, that the chemicals that were used in the paint had actually led to him losing his mind, sort of the way mercury was poisoning hat makers. But he had become furious with President Jackson, who he believed was the reason he wasn't getting the money he believed he was owed by the federal government for his, in quote, holdings in England. There's also a possibility the man had some form of schizophrenia, and voices convinced him to go after President Jackson. So on January 30th, 1835, Jackson was appearing at Capitol Hill for the laying of state of Warren R. Davis, a representative from Carolinas, so the president was paying his respect to a fellow Carolinian. Then he made his way out to return to the White House. Lawrence jumped from behind one of the columns on the Capitol and fired towards the president. Only one problem: there was a lot of moisture in the air this day, so his flintlock pistol misfired. He quickly drew a second pistol, fired, and also misfired. But after this first shot, Jackson had realized something was happening. Then he made the connection. Now, usually in this scenario, the president would be ushered away while the others subdued the gunman. Not the frontiersman Jackson was, though. Instead, he began to beat on Lawrence. Now, not like a, oh, back off beating. A beating that literally he got Lawrence on the ground and was punching and striking down on him with his cane. Now, not many people really understood what was happening, so a very, very famous congressman named Davy Crockett came out and witnessed the president beating the hell out of a random citizen. It took him with a few other men to pull the president off of Lawrence, who was then immediately arrested for attempting to murder the president. He would be found guilty, however, due to the reason of insanity, also probably because he was found not guilty, however, due to reason of insanity. Also probably because he was so banged up when he came to the courthouse because of the president's retaliation. This will make history as the first ever attempt to kill a sitting president of the United States. As I said in our Theodore Roosevelt video, it is also the first time an assassin or would-be assassin was confronted by their victim or would-be victim. These videos will be slightly shorter, mainly because there is no great effect that the attempt had on the greater scope of history as the others did. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, hope you learned something new about Andrew Jackson. Please like, share, and comment. And if you're new to the channel, I hope we can earn your subscription to grow our ever-growing community of history fanatics. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.